So we're back with the Armstrongs, and we're talking about how the whole fight for the Stanislaus to keep it from being flooded by New Melones Dam took place and what their involvement in it is. The Proposition 17 was a centerpiece of that. That was 1974. What was your overall involvement, both individually and as a company, in all of those campaigns?
Good question.
Well, our oldest brother, Mark, he recalls going to Friends of the River meetings in Oakland, and we would have chapter meetings here. The outfitters would set up locations for gatherings and group meetings for it. So I remember we had them here, and the other outfitters in the Bay Area also had them. I think for me personally, I started guiding commercially when I was about 14 or 15 on the Stanislaus. It didn't go too well, the first trip. My brothers and sisters kept wanting me to work, and my father said, no, you gotta wait. And so he did allow me to row gear, and I didn't do too well. On the first trip, boat went over, flipped. Didn't have a good start to my rafting career. But I did row through high school. Most of what I did was row gear on the Stanislaus. So I would transfer the letter writing people that would give the talks to the different outfitters in camp. They would move up and down the Stanislaus Canyon. So I look back and had the privilege of transporting a lot of them from one camp to the next. And for me, as a high schooler, I just thought that every 20-something picked a cause and fought for it, because that's all I saw is 20-somethings trying to save this place. And I also remember thinking, I'm not going to raft for that long, because the rivers that we were actually rafting on, the Stanislaus plus the Tuolumne and the American River, all had threats for dams. So as a kid, in my mind, in my teens, I thought I'm going to do this for about 10 years because everything's going to be dammed up after that. So then when the Stanislaus was the only one that did get dammed up, and when it got flooded, we, and plus a lot of other outfitters in the state, went out to try to find other rivers to run. And now we run 10 rivers throughout California. But I would say we chased the Stanislaus to try to find it, and we never found it. But I do think that what we learned on the Stanislaus as kids, and also in the 70s when we were taking guests on the Stanislaus, what that river meant to us, that's what we've tried to share with our guests today, the full river experience. Now, it's not just the rapids, it's everything else that a canyon can provide. And I often think about where that came from, because you've got to create that energy and that perspective, and it came from us as kids, how special the Stanislaus was to us in the 60s.
Well, I was managing the Stanislaus, so all the trips I was on. And so I'd run shuttle and guide and do whatever is necessary, packing of food and packing of gear. And so I was running up Camp 9 Road all the time. So one trip I brought, I think, was 30 people down, and I was going back. I think I was going back to pick them up. So we'd all set up all the gear at Camp 9, and I was heading back out the road to the top to pick up the people. And I come around this corner, and there's a bunch of redneck individuals in their trucks, and I think there was somebody who had a shotgun. I don't recall exactly. Could be river exaggeration. But whatever the case, I'm going around the corner and I'm stopped. And I think, what the heck is going on here? And I said, hey, I need to get by. I've got 30 people waiting for me. He says, we're not letting you by. We don't want those 30 people down this river, and we don't want you in this river. And I thought, well, that's not going to work. I think I said, that's not going to work, because these people are paid money. We don't want their money. We don't want the people, we don't want the money, we don't want you guys. So we're just going to stay here until you can't do the trip, and then we're going to leave. And so and then back behind them, this little car comes down. Big tall guy gets out, and I recognize it's Mark Dubois. And he walks in, he goes, what's going on around here? And he's kind of a towering, impressive dude. And I told them what's going on, and they said they gave him the same story, and somehow he talked them out of it and let me by, and I brought the people back. So, but there was just so much resistance, locally speaking. And we were really, we were hated. I mean, we really were hated, and that. Yes, the fight and the letter writing and all the education, all the things we did, we fought hard for it. Our brother Mark was down at Gemco here when Gemco existed in Walnut Creek, having people sign the petitions and educate them about Prop 17. It was a lot of work. I remember being at a meeting the first time I ever met Bill Center. We were at a meeting in Berkeley about support, and he got up and talked. I said, that guy's definitely a strong dude. And we ended up taking his advice and educating our people, and part of the whole campaign. So I think what Scott's saying is really critical, is that, to sum this all up, is because we grew up there when nobody was there, and it became so intimately special to us. When that fight happened, we fought as hard as we could, because it was like losing a child or a mate or whatever. It was bad. And so we fought and fought and fought, and then when it just went south, for some really weird reasons, we don't need to talk about that, but whatever the case, it did. And it was like part of us died. I mean, that's the way to describe it. And I think what happened after that is every river, like Scott said, we looked for the Stanislaus. We looked on the Middle Fork of the American. There's some side creeks. We were the ones discovering the side creeks. Why? Because Rose Creek and South Fork of the Stanislaus. No, it's not about these rapids. It's about the rapids for enjoyment and the canyon for lasting impact. And so we ended up just discovering all kinds of stuff on the Middle Fork of the American. So we found a place, fortunately, that maybe wasn't the only major limestone canyon in the country, but it was beautiful and it was unexplored, and we could create trips there that represented something like a Stanislaus experience, and of course the Tuolumne, same thing. So I think the fight that happened in the 70s, we felt at the end when it was lost in the early 80s, we were devastated, but I think what grew out of it, at least for All Outdoors, was a whole nother way to do river trips. And it's the original way we learned. The Stanislaus taught us, and you can do it in other places. It doesn't, yes, it's a loss, but the Tuolumne, the North Fork of the Stanislaus, the Lower Stanislaus, the Merced, all these places we're at, they have qualities too. And if you go for those qualities beyond just the rapids, I think it changes people's lives. And that's what the Stanislaus did for us, and we are privileged to be doing that for 10,000 people a year doing the same thing.